Hello and welcome to episode 250 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now, here we are, episode 250. For me, that's a huge milestone, and I want to celebrate it in style. If you remember back in episode 200, I got my dad to join me. That was the way for me to celebrate that huge occasion. And for me, episode 250 is really significant. I've been thinking for a while, who do I want on the podcast to celebrate this episode? It needs to be someone that means a hell of a lot to me personally. I really want it to be someone that I've followed for many years and just someone that I've been basically wanting to talk to since starting the podcast. So I'm absolutely thrilled to announce that on today's episode, I'm joined by the Silverchair drummer, Ben Gillies. Silverchair for me are one of the most influential bands that I've ever come across. During my time at secondary school and college, they were the band that I always had in my Walkman. Frog Stomp for me is one of the best debut albums of all time. It absolutely blew my mind that the band was so young and writing such incredible songs, amazing riffs, and just getting to basically be the coolest band on the planet. I remember myself standing in front of a mirror with a guitar, wishing I was Daniel Johns, playing along to stuff like Frog Stomp, Freak Show. And it's because of Silverchair I then went on to listen to bands like Helmet, Deftones, Nine Inch Nails. They really were that band that influenced all the bands I listen to today. I was in a band when I was a kid called Oracle, and genuinely the three of us, me, Ben and Ben, would sit there and in rehearsals mostly play covers from Silverchair. We would sit there playing stuff like Tomorrow, Fault Line, and that's what we did. We would go and do small gigs, bigger gigs, and tour the country, and always play Silverchair covers. I remember when we played with bands like Gold Newt back in the day, and there was this event called Friday Night Live, and all the bands that were playing, between us, would probably have about 7 or 8 Silverchair songs on the set list. It was this movement that everyone loved. They were such an influenced and loved band, and everyone adored them. So to know that I can sit here today and talk to the drummer of one of my favourite bands ever, ask all those amazing questions, find out about the making of Frog Stomp, Freak Show, the incredible album Neon Ballroom, and of course I asked the killer question that I've been waiting to ask Silverchair my whole life. Will there ever be a time that we'll see them play again? So stick around for that interview, which will be coming up in just a couple of moments' time. But before we get to that interview, let's touch base and talk about the last episode. On episode 249, I was joined by the film director, Jamie Adams. We got to sit down and talk all about his brand new film, She Is Love. I've seen the reviews for this film and it's just come out now and it's getting some amazing reviews. People are loving the chemistry on set and just absolutely adoring the performances. And this is everything we talked about on the interview. It's a great film and go and check it out. But today it's all about episode 250. I won't lie, I've been trying to get Ben on this podcast for a couple of years. When I first started Mark and Me, Silverchair were top of my list. I've always wanted to try and get them on the podcast, but these things take time, dedication, a lot of effort, and eventually, if you're persistent and work hard, these things pay off. And I'm so grateful for Ben for coming on the podcast. So what I want to do now is to get straight to the interview. So here's me and Ben talking all things music. So Ben, thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Ben, what I like to do is take it right back to the start, and I'm talking the real early days. Tell me about when you were growing up. What were those first records you remember buying with your pocket money that made you fall in love with music?
One of the very first songs I remember my dad showing to me, I think it was called like The Baby Elephant Walk. Does that ring a bell? I'm sure it was called the Baby Elephant. I'm sure it was called the Baby Elephant Walk. And I remember it really sparked some curiosity in me in music. I do remember buying Paula Abdul's Opposites Attract on vinyl. And I was loved the film clip with the animated cats. There was some Australian artists I think I bought, like like Baby Animals, and maybe even some like Cold Chisel. But I think for me that the real like light bulb moment that kind of changed my life was Led Zeppelin. So
Wow.
my dad was a very big Led Zeppelin fan, and he would just keep kind of peppering me with it, like, why don't you listen to a bit of Led Zeppelin? Why don't you listen to Led Zeppelin? I was like, whatever, old man, you don't know what you're talking about. And obviously he did. And eventually I guess when I reached a certain level of musical maturity, it just clicked for me, and I fell in love with Zeppelin, and just became obsessed. It was like everything else just fell by the wayside for at least a few months, and it was just Zeppelin, 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 Zeppelin. Um, and I think by that stage I was playing drums as well, because I started playing drums at 8 years old, and became obsessed with John Bonham, and yeah, that kind of. Well, I think Led Zeppelin really did kind of form my musical foundation from that moment. I think before that it just felt like I was kind of reaching into the toy box and just trying to pick out stuff that I might like. But that was the moment that really changed everything for me.
What a foundation as well. Like, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, they're the bands that are going to like never ever get old. Led Zeppelin, when I watch back their Blu-rays and DVDs now, their performances, no one ever touches that, does it? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think I guess one of the things that I relate to in Zeppelin that I think and by no means am I comparing Silverchair to Led Zeppelin, but I think I can recognize the synergy of the band
Yeah.
in Zeppelin, and I think that's what made it so magical. And there was, I think, that's kind of something as a musician that you aspire to, to be part of something that can feel like that. So to have to, to then be able to go on and have an experience with two mates, and have that kind of synergy within a band, and that kind of chemistry, like, it makes like, I guess it helps you understand why bands like Led Zeppelin, were so popular and so fucking good. Like, they were so good. They were so good. I mean, and they were before my time. Like, they were no longer a band by the time I
No.
was. So, but still, like, man, I remember actually. There was two things with Silverchair's manager. And I remember because there is, with any job there's perks, right? So I remember calling up Watto. One of them was to meet James Brown, which I was lucky enough to do. And the other one was, I remember calling him and basically, or emailing him, whatever it was, and saying, when Zeppelin basically reformed with Jason Bonham. Look, I knew it wouldn't be quite the same because it's just, it had to truly be Led Zeppelin, it has to be John Bonham. But Jason's an amazing drummer as well, and
Yeah.
he's still got his dad's feel. When they announced they were doing some show, this is quite a few years ago in the UK, I remember calling my manager saying, if you can do anything to get me a ticket to that, even if it's one ticket, I do not care where I am on the planet. I will, I will, I will make my way there. I will get there somehow. But I think by that stage it was too late, and it was just, can you imagine how many people, wanted tickets to that bloody show?
A one-off as well. It wasn't like it was a tour or a festival. It was a one-off show.
I know, what a tease. Like, come on, guys. Like, you're all out there still, like, playing music, and, like, you see, didn't, like Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones, like they did some gigs, like they got up with the Fooey a couple of
Yeah,
times.
I saw them at Wembley, and they joined Dave Grohl on stage, and I was like, God, there's two out of three. Just one more instead on the vocals, and we could have got Zeppelin here.
Yeah,
Stick Grohl on drums.
yeah, and Robert Plant, like he's so, and I actually, I love Robert Plant. I think he's so awesome how he just keeps playing music. It's up to me, and the perception of Robert Plant is he just keeps doing what he does because he loves it, and he doesn't care where he plays. He doesn't
No,
care if it's like if he's playing to 20,000 people or 1,000 people in a little like smoky club somewhere in the middle of Europe. Like he's just so into it, and I just love that. So come on, guys,
he
just
doesn't
do
live too far from me, and we have little like dingy pubs and stuff that have folk nights and acoustic nights and
yeah.
open mic nights, and quite often you'll see him in there having a beer, just watching young folk bands, or now and then he'll get up and just do a song. And no, he never announces that he's going to be there. He just kind of goes along with the crack.
He's so rad. Actually, we that was one of my fanboy moments. We played a show. It was in Zurich, and we were on some backstage to playing really early in the day. It was funny. Our trajectory in Europe was really different to how it was in Australia and the US, which was really fast and really it took off really quickly. But through Europe and the UK, we had to. I guess we had to work out a lot harder, to get in front of people. But so we played early in the day, but the Page and Plant were doing like their thing in the 90s, and they were playing on the main stage, and we were backstage at the main stage. And I remember, I think our dads were on tour with us at the time, and I remember Jimmy Page and Robert Plant were standing like just literally like within 20 meters of us. And I was like kind of looking over at them going like, they're right there. They are right there. All I need to do is walk over there, introduce myself and say hello. That's and that's like how fucking easy is that? Like how as a human being, how easy is it to go over to someone and just say, "Hey, I really love your music and I appreciate what you've done. I just wanted to come and say hi and shake their hand." And the funny thing is, I imagine people have had that same experience with us and Silverchair.
Of course.
Um, but to be, I'm a fan as well. I'm a fan of music, and I completely wimped out and I didn't do it.
Oh man. I
I
wanted that
know.
story to go a different way, that you walked over and you had a good time, and then they watched your set, and then you had a beer, and like, oh wow.
But it was, you know what? That gig was probably that's probably in my gigs of all time. Seeing them, that for some reason there was a magic in the air that night. Um, it was really good. We did eventually meet Jimmy Page, funnily enough, but when we didn't let that opportunity go. That was in Brazil because they worked with Kevin Shirley, who produced Frog Stomp,
Yeah.
had done some work on some Led Zeppelin stuff, and Kevin just happened to be in Brazil when we were there doing a tour, hanging out with Jimmy, and we happened to meet up with Kevin just to say hello, and he was like, "Hey, do you guys want to meet Jimmy?"
Fucking
And
hell.
and we'd had the experience in Zurich, so that time we knew the answer straight away. We're like, yes, yes, we would like to meet Jimmy Page, please. So we went. He was hanging out at like the hotel pool with a couple of like, you know, nice looking Brazilian girls
Yeah.
hanging off him. And anyway, we sat down and we chatted to him for I don't know, 20 minutes about
Oh, that's
music.
awesome.
Yeah, so that we got to tick that box, which was cool.
You mentioned Frog Stomp, and I grew up, and it was one of the first albums I bought. I'm 40 now, so I remember buying it and thinking, fucking hell, this band are amazing. And I couldn't believe that you were so young, 15 and 16, to be writing these songs and going out there. It sounds crazy, but did you guys have chance to step back and kind of see how it was evolving so quickly and how you blew up? Because You were so young. You were probably quite naive at that age. You were quite kind of not experienced because you're so young and still kind of finding your teenage self. But you were blowing up to be one of the biggest bands in Australia from such a kind of overnight. Was it really hard to get your head around at that age?
Yeah, I think the pace at which the band took off was it was a really odd experience. I mean, within 6 months, like we were just school kids, and then I remember there was one gig we did in Melbourne. What's it called? At Luna Park in Melbourne, and I remember walking on stage and like the screaming was just so mind-bogglingly loud that you could hardly hear the instruments, and um, it was kind of weird to get your head around. But I think we were so focused on the music, and we were really young and naive, and I think the combo of those two things meant that all that extra stuff wasn't important. It was we were just it was because of the music that we were playing, and that's what was driving us. Where I think, maybe we definitely had ambition. There's no doubt. Like we wanted to be a great band, and we rehearsed a lot, and um, we definitely wanted to be successful. But at the core of what we were doing, we wanted to be a great band.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, and we wanted to make great music, and we wanted to be a great live band. I remember always talking to Dan and I would always talk about that we want to be known as a great live band. Um, so I think because that was our core focus, even at that age, that all the extra stuff, um, it was like, don't get me wrong, like the success means it can't, the success feeds the next steps you can take. It means you can take like more risks, or you can be more experimental, or you can then you can kind of start balancing the creativity and finance as well. Like if you're making money from it, you can feed it back into the band, and so all those things start to happen. But I think at that young age, being naive and being so focused on being a great band and making the best music we could at the time was, made everything else kind of fade into the background.
That's fair. And I mean, once you'd kind of left your mark on the industry with this debut album, it took off. You got to play with bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers and start touring around the world. And, you had your parents with you because you're so young. You kind of have that pressure of like, how do we follow this? How do we take it up a notch? Because we've left such a complete, huge kind of mark with our debut. So the moment you kind of sat there and thought, right, Freak Show, how do we take this up? For me, I remember queuing up outside Virgin Megastore back then when everyone wanted CDs, and I was queuing up to get Freak Show. And they played it in the shop, and I heard the opening riff of Slave, and instantly I was like, fuck, they've nailed it instantly, just off the da, 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 da. I was like, oh man, like this is it. And the journey that album took me on, then you got Freak and Abuse Me and all this. I was like, the drum sounds, the production and everything. You must be so proud that you didn't just kind of have this one hit wonder. You were like took it up a notch, and Daniel's writing got deeper and the musicianship got more, and you had more instruments. It must be amazing that under all that pressure you achieved that second album that a lot of bands fail at.
Yeah, I think at the time there was definitely a sense of pressure that you have to follow up, and we'd never anticipated that either. But there was definitely a sense of pressure that you have to follow up such a big success. But again, in hindsight, and with a bit of age and wisdom, I guess what we didn't realize is that we had so much room to grow and to improve that, you know, that we were probably in the best position to be able to come up with something, that was more challenging again. And because obviously, as musicians, when you're 14 years old, you're still, you know, you're not an accomplished musician at 14 years. I don't think, most people ever become an accomplished musician. Like, I think, if true musicians, I think, are always trying to improve and try new things. But particularly at that age, like, you've got so much learning to do. Um, so, I think we had plenty of headroom to be able to back up Frog Stomp. And also, maybe it's an age thing as well, like that we were just doing what we loved, and but yeah, there were definitely different factors. The first record was just a bunch of songs that we wrote and we rehearsed and played, and we weren't doing it for we weren't thinking about putting out a record or backing up anything that we'd done previously. So there was something very raw and honest and about that record. But there were definitely other factors in every album after that, because then you've got I guess there's certain expectations, there's record companies, so there are other things that come into it. But I mean, for me, like, I think it's important to try not to think about that stuff and just make the music that makes you feel good and that you want to play, because otherwise, you'll make compromises.
That's amazing. I think because you're so involved in it and you were there and you were quite young still at that age, you didn't have hindsight to look back on. So you weren't like, oh, well, maybe we'll do this or maybe we'll do that or we'll try something else. You were just doing it for the music. And I think that's what showed, because you went out there with a point to prove. I'm sure you had support slots at that point with bands that were bigger, that you wanted to make sure that people that were paying to go and see that band would take note of you and hopefully leave that gig that night with, fucking hell, that support band Silverchair were amazing. I'm going to check them out. You wanted to just do the best job you could.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny that I think Silverchair is one of those bands that some people didn't quite. Some people just got the band straight away and were fans, and they were in and they loved us and they followed the journey. We did pick up a lot of fans, I think, through like those European festivals, or the radio shows in the US, or the Big Day Out in Australia, or the support slots for bigger bands. Um, because we were so focused on being good live. I think we're a great live band.
Yeah.
When people saw us, it's like they had that same moment I had with Zeppelin. Like they kind of got it. They're like, oh, now I understand what these guys are about. And it's amazing. It always amazed me how many new fans we'd pick up after doing those festivals or the support slots. And
No, I get your point. It's the fact that when you saw the songs live, it was a different experience, and you kind of you get it. Something clicks, I think, when you see a band live.
yeah, I don't think, yeah, it's certainly not a Silverchair centric thing. I think it happens not for all bands, but there are a lot of bands that, if you might hear their record and be like, oh yeah, they're cool, they're doing something that I kind of like. But yeah, if you see them live, then all of a sudden, you're all in.
For me, at that point when I was growing up and I bought Freak Show and I heard the way that three of you could make so much noise, and it was like, okay, there's not three or four guitarists in this band. It's not like Pearl Jam where there's five people. It's like just three of them, but they're tight as fuck. They're really knowing what they want. Dan's vocals are leading it here really well. Great melody. I was thinking, how do you top this? And when Neon Ballroom came out, which is one of my favorite albums of all time, I think Emotion Sickness is probably one of my favorite songs ever. The fact you had all the piano arrangements, the orchestra, and everything else took it up. At that point, what was it like? Because you were playing festivals, you were touring the world. I saw you on that tour at Nottingham and then Reading Festival that year, and it really felt like you were at your peak at that point. Like, no one was then saying, "Oh, Silverchair are just a bunch of young lads trying to be Black Sabbath or something like this." It was like, "Fuck!" Like they've shown that they've got more than just riffs. They're pulling out these melodies, and some of the piano arrangements for some of the songs on that album and everything is genuinely a masterpiece.
Yeah, actually, the guy, I can't remember his last name, Larry, who wrote the piano piece for David Heathcote on Emotion Sickness. Even when I first heard that, like, I was like that is incredible. So even to see when it was really cool that the day that David Heathcote came in to play that part on Emotion Sickness. And I'll tell you the crazy part about when David Heathcote played on Emotion Sickness is I don't think, I could be wrong, but my recollection and my thinking was that he had not seen the music. So the first time David Heathcote saw the music was on the day that he
Fucking
played it.
hell.
I think so. That could be wrong, but I remember him going through it and like, so he was like, "Oh look, I'll do the left hand rather than play." I think I don't think he played it as one, like his left and right hand
Yeah.
together. I think he played the left hand first, and then he did the higher stuff on his right hand over the top of it, just so he could really nail the part. Surely that can't be. Surely that must be some like story that I just made up in my head. I'm sure that
If
he
it's a
must
made
have.
up story, I love it. But that piano arrangement, it's all over the shop. You listen to it, it's like you could never try and play along on the piano. It's fucking crazy, but it
Yeah,
works and it goes so well. That song's a journey and it takes you all places. But I was worried when I bought that album that when I came to see you in Nottingham, would it still sound as good because you had all the layers and the string sections and everything? But you nailed it. The moment you came on and started with Emotion Sickness and you played stuff like Miss You Love and all that, it had the depth. I think you had other musicians on stage at that point. You'd evolved a bit, but you just said, you thought you were a great live band. You were fucking phenomenal. That night I left there thinking, fucking hell, like I wish they were playing more often because you guys only came to the UK now and then.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, definitely. At that point, because there was a lot more complexity in the songs, we did have other musicians kind of helping to fill those, a lot of the strings and piano parts. But I think the core of and I think this is why Silverchair, the important thing about Silverchair that made it Silverchair was the core of Daniel, Chris, and I's. If we were locked in and tight, and we were that foundation, then all that stuff, all the other tinsel and all the other bits and pieces, it kind of it gave it something to kind of lock into. But yeah, look, I think we worked really hard for those live shows. We rehearsed a lot and we spent a lot of time getting the right musos and and even as the albums went on, like even for Diorama, I remember we had a guy, actually his name is Julian Hamilton, who ended up co-writing some stuff on Young Modern. He, to get it even closer to the album, he took the original orchestral parts from the original recording and sampled it. But I don't know. I technically don't know how the hell he did it, but he sampled it in a way so if there was any variation in the speed, because we didn't play the clicks,
No.
so it was all very natural. So and there's naturally variation in the speed every on different nights. Some nights, particularly for me, I might be really excited during a song if we're having a good gig, so I'm naturally pushing it a little bit more than I normally would. But yeah, Julian had he had the orchestral parts sampled and cut up so he could play it on his keyboard. But it didn't matter if the song was a little quicker or a little slower, that it would still be in time with the rest of the band.
It's incredible. And you just talked about Diorama and Young Modern. Going into Young Modern, did you guys, I don't want to focus on negativity, but obviously the cracks were starting to happen with Daniel's health and everything else, and all the stuff that went with the band. Did you go into that album knowing it was your final album mentally, or were you kind of just still going into it hoping that, it was still going to be a longer journey?
Yeah, I mean, every Silverchair record I went into thinking it was like it wasn't our last. I mean, we started working on a sixth record. Um, so yeah, no, there was definitely at no point did I think this is our last record on Young Modern. Um, yeah, I mean, we had a ball making that record. It was, I mean, look, there was moments when, like any job and like any record and like any music, there are struggles and there are moments where you have to work hard and it might be tough, But if you want to do anything in life that you come out the other side of and you're proud of, and it's generally, you got to work for it. And but my memories of making that record were really good ones. Like we stayed at this house. It was a suburban house in the valley in Los Angeles, and it had we all stayed in the house together, and it had a pool, and the studio was just in the garage, like it was tiny. Um, compared to what we'd done on the previous records, when you're in these big, like particularly 301, where we did Diorama, that was like this, it wasn't a corporate studio, but it was a big
The
production
scale of it
studio.
was huge, yeah.
Yeah, the scale was massive, where for Young Modern, for the band tracks at the very least, was basically done in a garage. It was a really good studio. It had the quality, like the world class quality gear in there, but the size of it was tiny. I mean, I think the drum room was like, it was the size of a bedroom, but we
Wow.
we just opened the doors up and had some kind of room mics out in the other in the larger space. But even then, in the larger space was like, that's where Dan and Chris were basically, they were only a few meters from each other when we played the band tracks together. Um, so
I
yeah,
love that
look,
though. I love the intimacy of that. I love the fact that you weren't in this massive, complete, huge studio. The fact that you were all like kind of going back to your roots a little bit, if that makes sense.
100%, yeah. Well, and I never understood it on all of the first four records. What we would do is we'd always play as a band to get the bass drum track. Not
Yeah,
that's We'd always play together to get the drum track,
yeah,
and then everything would be built off that. And then the guitars would be redone and the bass would be redone and everything else would be kind of re-recorded over the top of it. And I never quite understood it, because I always thought to myself, why wouldn't we just keep that first core recording of the three of us together? And then if Dan's made any mistakes or Chris has made any mistakes, or if there's any parts that they don't particularly like, just go back and, drop in and re-record,
redo it. Yeah,
that bar or whatever. But we still never did it. But when we got to Young Modern, we really kind of made a point of saying, no, we want to, whatever the band plays as a band for that kind of core track, we want to keep that as the basis of the whole song.
I love it.
So yeah, so a lot of those well, I think most of the tracks on Young Modern, like the bass, drums, and guitar, are probably, I mean, most bands do this. It's probably a combination of a couple of the best takes. You might take a chorus from
Yeah,
take two and put it however you edit it together, but the core of it was all done as one band in one moment, which I think that's the beauty of Silverchair, is when you capture that moment.
it's more of a performance then, isn't it? It's more of a collective I think it's just, yeah, it comes across as more of an experience, not just, layer upon layer upon layer building up. It doesn't, if it's not artificial, because that the final product is still what you want, but it just feels more of a genuine organic performance.
Yeah, and you feed off each other.
Yeah,
I think when you're in a band, like um, you know, part of that magic and part of that synergy is kind of, you'll just you'll kind of look over at someone, you'll be like, yeah, this is the one. Like we're in the pocket in this one, you know, or it's where it's, you'll have that moment where, none of us are thinking. All thought has left the building and you're just pure instinct, and you just capture this moment and you're
yeah.
like, yeah, that's the one. And it's funny when it happens, you can listen back to like 5 or 6 takes of the same song, and the moment, you go, yeah, well, that's the one. I remember that moment because like we
You
we
felt
weren't
it.
yeah, we weren't thinking about it. We were just, you know,
You were
we were
in the
just
moment, weren't you? You knew it. This is the feeling of that's the one.
yeah, that's it. Nothing else exists except for me, performing with you guys and having this moment together, and it's being captured on tape. And then you hear it back and you go, well, fuck, that's pretty sick.
I love it. When it finally ended and the band announced their official, Silverchair no more, how long did it take for you to actually mentally accept that? Because from such a young age, it was all you did. It was performing, writing, being with your best two friends, going around the world, playing the biggest festivals, headlining the festivals. The fact someone kind of took it away from you and it was gone. It's bigger than like a divorce. It's bigger than a breakup. It's like something's gone from you, isn't it? It's like that was my purpose, that was my existence. So how did your body and your mind react to that?
I guess disappointment. I mean, look, the band, the official line from the band is that we went on a indefinite hiatus, but we never actually made an official statement after that saying that we'd broken up. It was just kind of, I don't know, it was just all a bit of a mess after that. So yeah, it's been, I don't know how I don't know how to articulate it. It's just been really disappointing.
Does it feel like there was ever any hope in that time? It's been a long time now, but did it ever feel like maybe that phone would ring and it might be you and Dan saying, let's do it again, or Chris saying he misses it too, or there could be something, or was it just like a flame that just went out?
Look, I think, yeah, I think there was, for a time there, I thought with time, that we could all, find a place where maybe it's something that we miss, particularly that musical connection.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, for me anyway, I've played with a bunch of musicians since, and I mean, it's just not the same. And which is sad, and it's, it is disappointing, but also life goes on, like I personally, for me, like in Silverchair, it was always about the music for me, and I loved it so much, and I loved playing, and I loved recording, and I loved creating and writing, and I just love the whole process. There was sometimes it was a bit of a drag, but I don't think there's anything in life that you do that doesn't have something that you kind of go, it's a bit of a pain in the ass. Like sometimes the travel could be challenging, and sometimes you didn't feel like doing interviews. But ultimately, it was the music that I love so much, and the creative process. So I think for me, like, the way I've dealt with it is just to, one, just let it go and realize that nothing lasts forever, and also that we're all on our own kind of personal journeys. But as long as I have music in my life in some way, that really does satisfy me and make me feel good. And um, whatever that is, if it's sitting at my piano and having a jam, or playing my drums, or recording some music, or working with a new producer that kind of um, shows me some new techniques that I hadn't thought of before, or whatever it is that gets me excited. But as long as that's in my life, then you know then then I'm happy. I'm musically happy,
Yeah.
but because outside of, there's also, I think outside of music, particularly now, like having twin boys, like that also, I think that's a huge life changer. It makes you really put into perspective what's important in life. Um, I think it's funny how do I want to say this? Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess having kids for me has just made me. It's almost made me love music even more. Because I look at my boys and I just think, holy shit, I couldn't possibly love a human being any more than I love you two boys. Um, but then for some reason, it's just, even when I do get to play music and record music, and jump on the piano or drums or whatever it is, like it's almost even more joyous than it was before.
If your phone rang now and it was Dan and he said, I want to do it, I want to do a reunion, I want to come back, would you jump at it? Or now that you've stepped back and had children and your life's different, would you kind of think differently? Or would you just fucking be like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's get back and get that chemistry going again?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a really good question. Um, yeah, because life has kind of moved on, and I mean, Dan's kind of got his own thing going on, and I mean, there'd have to be some healing there, I think,
Yeah.
before we could potentially play music together again. Um, at the moment, I mean, the answer would probably be no. I think, I'm just at a different place in my life. I mean, Silverchair was amazing. But could we find that spark again?
And that would be the worry, wouldn't it? Because if you went out there and the three of you were like, "Let's do this," and the whole world's like, "Fucking hell, Silverchair are back," and then it's not great and it doesn't feel right, and the chemistry between you and Dan isn't right, and there's too much kind of, too much shit that's gone on in the time. You're kind of like, we don't want to tarnish the legacy we left.
Yeah, and it's not even about that. It's just like, I mean, I'm not sure if life just changes. I'm not sure if I want to do that again. I've kind of like, my memories of Silverchair are all really good and positive ones,
That's
and
good.
I think all the experiences that we had, and there were tough times. Look, don't get me wrong. There were, but like I said, I don't think there's any such thing as any job or anything in life where aren't challenges. And if you don't have those challenges, you're not going to grow, and learn. And we definitely had those moments in Silverchair. Um, but yeah, life goes on, and I feel like I'm just in a different stage in my life where I'm not sure that I'd want to open that door again. Um,
It's different as well, married with children, twins. You don't want to be saying, "See you in 6 months. I'm going around the world again." Everything's different, isn't it? Like you said, you're a different person now. You think differently. You live differently.
yeah. Look, the passion for what we did in Silverchair, the creation and the tour, and like I really enjoyed touring as well, because you're on a bus with a bunch of guys. I mean, we were always an all male touring party, so like that was a lot of fun. And when you press play back in a studio and you hear something that you've created out of thin air, like all those things are amazing. Um, but I mean, I do my own music creation on my own, which I absolutely adore and love. And do I need the touring in my life? Like at this point, no, because when I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I see my two little smiling boys wanting a kiss and a cuddle, like that just makes my heart sing.
Yeah.
And to be taken away from that because of touring, like I would definitely feel like I'm missing out on something rather than the other way around. I don't think I'm missing out on something not touring with Silverchair. So um, yeah, look, I don't know. Like the answer at the moment would probably be no, because I think some things would have to change and some bridges would have to be mended. But my line with Silverchair has always been, in the wise words of Justin Bieber, you never say, you never say never.
Amazing. I love that we got Justin Bieber in here somehow.
Well, because and it's also that's how I feel now.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know how Chris and Dan feel about it. And I also make of some stuff in the media gets put in front of me, but I do my very best to stay away from stuff about Silverchair in the media, because it's not in my world at the moment or ever could be again. So I do tend to kind of do my best to stay away from it. Um, but you never know. You never know how someone might feel, um, out of all three of us in 5 or 10 years. Um,
Do you like the fact that you're in a world now where Dan is writing music again and he's, out of the dark and he's, are you in talking terms with him? Have you spoke to him recently? Because during the promotion for the Future Never tour, they had a YouTube series that was promoting it, and your name
right.
came up a couple of times, and it was as if you hadn't spoken and there was still stuff to be sorted. And I just really hope that one day you two do have to sit down and kind of patch that up.
Yeah, I haven't really spoken to him. No. I think in like 13 years we may have spoken, maybe like half a dozen times.
Yeah.
And yeah, and probably not the best conversations either. So yeah, I mean, Dan and I just we don't have a relationship.
That's sad, as a fan of your music and all this, I wish one day whoever it is can bring you guys together and just, for the old time's sake and everything, just let that water go under the bridge and just be like, wipe the slate clean and fuck it, we had a good time.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. You never know. Like I said, Justin Bieber is a wise man.
Hey, Dan, on the other day, I saw on Instagram he posted one of your clips about one of your songs. I saw that on his stories and I thought, oh, fucking hell, that's good. That's positive.
Yeah, I saw that too. I mean, I mean, Dan has never really. Uh, I guess it's yeah. You know what? I don't think we need to go there.
No, no, it's absolutely. It just felt positive instead of seeing stuff on the news or the media where it was like negative. It was just nice to see. It felt like a bit of fresh air.
Yeah, I mean he. Yeah, I mean it's not. It's very public.
Yeah,
Is instead of. I think if for any relationship, in order to try and mend it in any way, it needs to be private.
yeah. That's fair. And what about
Yeah.
Chris? Do you speak to him? I don't know anything about Chris anymore in this world. I see Dan on Instagram. I can see your life releasing solo music and doing stuff on Spotify and music videos. But is Chris just curled into a rock and just hidden from the world?
You know what? I actually do see Chris a lot.
Lovely.
Yeah, he and I have really made an effort to nurture our friendship. One thing that was pointed out to us once from our manager was there's only three guys in Silverchair, and there's only three guys that understand what it feels like to be in that band. Um, so, the fact that I don't have a relationship with Dan at all, I really cherish that friendship. I've always cherished the friendship with both of the guys.
Yeah,
Because of that reason, I really cherish my friendship with Chris, because he's one of my best mates, and we've just had experiences together that are phenomenal, and we've done it from. I mean, Chris and I met. I can't even remember when I met Chris. We lived across the road from each other when we were kids. Like we probably met when we were, it was definitely single digits, and it may have even been before we were like even five. We've known each other for
wow.
a really long time. Um, so yeah, so like all of my important kind of friendships and relationships, I go out of my way to nurture them, and Chris is one of those really important friendships in my life.
That's amazing. Is he doing well? Is he happy? Is he playing music still, or is he just enjoying life?
He's doing really well. He actually got into hospitality for actually not even a little while, for a good 10 years. He had a couple of restaurants, and he was the big boss. And yeah, he was always a real foodie. His nickname on tour was Truffles.
Truffles.
Yeah, because he could always Chris could always sniff out like a really good like culinary experience in whatever city we were in. He would always be able to find somewhere cool to go and check out and eat, or a cool watering hole or whatever. He was that was his thing. So it definitely felt like a natural progression for him to get into hospitality. But he's actually just recently got out of that, and um yeah, he's got a couple of kids, and he's living on a bit of land in Australia, and he's kind of cruising in, I'd say third gear, but maybe he's even in second gear. He's just really pulled it back, and he's just cruising along. And I've managed to drag him into the studio a couple of times,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
just have a bit of a jam. And he did contact me, because he'd had a big move recently up to a new place, and he contacted me and said, "Hey, what do you think I should do for a bit of a recording setup? Like, what are you using? What's something just nice and simple?" And I was like, "Ooh, mate, you getting back in? Are we gonna have a jam? We're gonna do this?" So I do keep hassling him, saying, "Come on, let's just have a play."
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it's good fun. It is. I mean, it's always good fun when we all get together and play. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe.
See, that's a nice positive way to end this interview. I'm loving that. That sounds like a bit of hope with just you two just jamming. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, yeah, totally. You know what? One of the great things about Silverchair was, I always thought, was our sound checks, and I regretted it so much. I wish I started early on. Um, was like recording our sound checks,
Yeah.
because generally what would happen at a sound check, the drums would be first, then the bass, and then Dan would come out. So it's almost like the same layer cake of a recording.
Yeah.
So you'd come out, you go through the kit, then you play some time, and then Chris would come out, his rig would be all ready, he'd start playing some stuff, and front of house would be getting it all sorted. Now, after a while, once that was sorted, Dan would wander out, play a bit of stuff, but we'd just play random shit. We wouldn't play songs. Like we'd eventually play a song. We'd be like, okay, now let's, do whatever, Miss Your Love or what. I
Yeah.
can't remember. But we'd say, okay, well, now we have to play a song to make sure all the levels are cool. But for a big chunk of getting just the bass sounds, we'd be just like jamming on like, beats and riffs and whatever. And sometimes we'd just sit in these pockets and you'd be there going like, you'd be kind of looking at each other going like, fuck, man, that is cool as shit.
Oh,
You
amazing.
know, yeah, and like we should have recorded them because they're
Yeah, we need to document them, and then they could have been future songs or riffs or parts that you
yeah,
were just.
totally. There totally would have been some songs in there. There was some really cool vibes that were just, and I couldn't possibly tell you what they were because they were just in the moment, and they were just,
Ah,
and because we were sound checking as well, like you didn't care, we didn't give a shit, so
no.
we were just kind of fucking around, and but because we didn't care, like the stuff that we were doing was just so friggin' rad. I loved it, and but yeah, a bit of a
One thing you mentioned on today's interview, and I have to ask because I might not ever get the opportunity to talk with you again, but you talked about album number 6 was, you were starting to put some work to that. Where was it going? Was it going to
Mhm.
go down the lines of going back to your roots a bit more? Was it getting heavier? Was it getting more experimental? Was it getting a bit electronic? I never knew where you were going to go after album number 5. I always thought to myself, where are they going to go after Young Modern? Is it gonna go a bit more Radiohead and a bit more atmospheric, or is it going to get a bit more grungy, or where was it going?
Um, well, I get we. It was probably one of the first times we'd been into this. Actually, it was probably the first time we went into the studio without any real songs.
Yeah.
So, on those first couple of records, like, there were tracks that Dan and I had worked on together, and then, Dan obviously became like the musical director for the last couple, and I don't know how it happened. I think it was our management were basically like, I think you guys should just get in the studio and see what happens. So, Dan didn't come in with any songs. There was no nothing. So we literally went into the studio and just said, let's just see what happens. And and we just started kind of jamming and mucking around and coming up with these cool ideas. And um the style of it was like it was kind of futuristic, but at the same time it had this kind of swagger to it. It had this real like you were strutting down New York, a street in New York, like thinking you're king shit, but you actually are king shit. Um, and it was just fucking cool.
Ah,
Yeah, man. I actually, when we first started that album, I actually thought it was really was going to be something really different again and really cool. Um, but those sessions for that album, I guess they started off really, really well. But the issue was that they weren't really songs. They were just a bunch of cool ideas that probably were the basis of songs, but they needed sculpting, and they needed to be um, we needed someone to come in and help us kind of turn them into songs and give them more dynamics and and work them up more. I mean, at that point, they were just really fucking cool ideas that could have become almost like the sound. They were almost like sound check ideas, you know. Um,
lots of
but yeah,
little riffs and jams and little bits and melodies and stuff, but not quite a finished product.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. But there was definitely a genesis of something. There was a spark there that was like, oh, this could be like, this is different again. Like, this is something else totally different again for us. Um, and I think what was cool about it is that Dan, because I guess on particularly on Diorama and Young Modern, he really wanted to control a lot of the music, but it was like Dan had let the reins out a lot, so he wasn't trying to control it as much. He was just getting in the studio with us and an engineer, and just we were all just saying, let's just see what happens. Let's just get excited about what we're doing and see where it goes. And I mean, it felt like the right thing to do was almost go back. It felt like a little bit going back to our roots, about just about being about the band. Um, yeah, just kind of over time. Like, I mean, I don't know what went wrong, but something went wrong, and it didn't pan out how I thought it was going to pan out. We needed someone to steer the ship,
Yeah.
and we probably, to be honest, we needed someone like a David Bottrell, or a producer to help take those ideas and turn them into songs. But
If only we could find that person.
yeah, that person's out there.
We'll find them one day. Never say never.
That's right. Thank you, Justin.
My final question for you today, and what I do on the podcast to keep it as original as I can, is every guest that's been on, it doesn't matter if they're an actor, a director, a musician, they get to choose the final piece of music that's played on the podcast. So after our interview today is all edited and out there for the world to listen to, the final piece of music that's played is chosen by you. I'm going to put you on the spot. You can't come back to me and let me know in a few days. Bands find this the hardest because you've probably got a million songs you love. But what would you love today to be the outro piece of music that might be something personal to you to play out after today's episode?
Okay, well, considering what we chatted about at the front end of the podcast, I think it needs to be Led Zeppelin.
Beautiful.
Just what Zeppelin song are we going to choose?
Quite a few to choose from.
Shit. I almost feel like I should pull up You know what I'm going to do?
Pull up the whole
Not the whole
discography.
bloody thing.
Yeah.
No. I'm going to pull up. I think we're going to go with something off Led Zeppelin 4. Oh, what do we do? Oh, there's so many good. Led Zeppelin 4 is fucking ridiculous.
It's insane. It's like a best of.
It's like the Battle of Evermore, Four Sticks, Going to California. Oh, that's so good. When the levee breaks, I feel like, you know what? This is what we're going to do. Just as a homage to Mr. Bonham, we're going to go with When the Levee Breaks.
What a tune. No one has picked any Led Zeppelin so far out of 240 episodes, which means for the next week when I edit this episode, I'll be then going down and listening to probably Led Zeppelin for the next 6 months solidly, which is always a good thing to do.
Yeah, man. No, I think that is such a When the Levee Breaks is such a classic Bonham, sitting back in the beat and just, I don't know, it's all Bonham. So that's my choice. When the Levee Breaks.
Thank you for coming on the podcast, dude. It's been a while coming, and your time, I know, is very limited, especially being a father of two and a married man and all the shit that goes with it. But I just want you to really understand how much I appreciate your time, because you're, without, kissing your ass, an absolute inspiration to me. Your albums, your music, your songwriting, and just your performances they changed my life, and it's because of the bands I listen to now is because of you. So thank you.
Oh man, well, thank you for the support. I always look at the supporters of the band. Like, if without the people that support the band, you can't be successful. So
I was at every UK show. I was at London, the Ballroom. I remember being at Rock City, Wolverhampton on the Freak Show tour,
wow,
Reading, Leeds.
awesome.
And
Did you go to any, did you go to any of the Brixton shows?
yes, I did. I think it was on the Neon Ballroom tour.
I bloody love playing the Brixton. That's a great venue.
So good. And every time you got better, and it's just, when you just look back at memories, and it's like you can take your. When I listen to a song now, it just takes you to that moment, and I can remember the moment I hear stuff like, it probably is a motion sickness. I can just think of being in Nottingham, and you guys coming on, and it just being fucking epic, and just I miss you guys, and I really hope one day everything can come good again, because I've listened to Daniel's album. I love it. But nothing is Silverchair for me, and there's a gap in the industry that I think has never been filled, which at times you surely can feel too.
There's a Silverchair gap in the industry.
There fucking is. There's not another band like Silverchair. There isn't. There's bands that want to be Silverchair, and there's bands that write riffs that sound like something that could come off Freak Show or Frog Stomp, but there's only one Silverchair, and I miss you guys. So I do hope one day, even if it's when you're 65 and you're like the Rolling Stones going out there, that we get to see you on stage again.
Yeah, well, we'll just keep coming back to Justin.
I might call the episode "Never Say Never."
Oh, yeah. Never say never. You never know. I don't know. You never know.
It's been a blast, man. I'm going to release this as my milestone episode 250, which is a big deal. So episode 200 was my dad. It was almost Keanu Reeves, but I'm saving episode 250 for you. So thank you.
Oh, awesome, man. That's so rad that you had your dad on your
I did.
podcast.
He's 80. He's 83 years old, and he talked all about World War II and the life that he had, and it was very different to what we have. And I just thought, how do I celebrate episode 200? And I was in talks with Deftones, and I was in talks with Keanu Reeves, and I went, no, my dad.
Yeah, that's nice.
I've got that forever
That's
now, haven't I?
that's awesome, man. I love it. You know what? I was asked to be part of this book in Australia, and it was like done by a famous Australian. I can't think of his name. Samuel, fuck something. Anyway,
Samuel fuck something. That's his name.
anyway, he's known in Australia. He was an actor. He does a lot of voice acting. I really like him. He seems like a nice fellow. But he's done this series of books, and I think it goes to charity, and it's like it's done. I think it did like he's done like Dear Dad, Dear Mum, Dear Lover, all these,
Yeah.
and basically gets like prominent people to write a letter to that person. And they asked me to do a Dear Dad, and literally like I had no time for it, so I was like, fuck, how do I do something that will be that's meaningful, and that just nails it straight away without having to do a big like monologue. And I just remember writing, Dear Dad, I'm taking a leaf out of your book because you're a man of few words. You're my hero. You always have been, and I love you.
Oh man.
And you get it right.
Beautifully put. Less is more, and it's perfect.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
told my dad on the episode that he was my hero, and I meant it. And people are always like, who's your superhero? Is it this person, or like Iron Man or Spider Man or a musician or a band or Michael Jackson? And I'm like, my dad, like he is my absolute superhero in this whole world. And the fact I got to record with him, and him just talk like he would and not even know what a podcast is, and just have a microphone and chatting at the dinner table for an hour and a half about the world and how he met my mom, and how I came into the world and all this. And honestly, it's magic. And I'm like, I've got that forever.
That's so cool. I really like that. And you know what? The funny thing about me saying that and you saying that is that I now think, how my boys gonna like view me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? All of a sudden you start all those things, like just how much you love your own children. You go, holy shit, that's how much my parents loved me when I was
When I
that's
was
how much.
being a little shit and misbehaving and doing this, they still loved me as much as that.
Yeah, they were just like, I will, like, you are everything to me. And like, yeah, it's funny when I hope you get the chance to have kids because it really is. It's one of the most wonderful things you can ever do. It's fucking awesome.
And you got two of them at once. It wasn't like one and then a few years later you were like, here you go, here's two for you, Ben.
Two boys as well. Like and I can tell they're very much like they're boys. Like they're so busy and they're like they just want to get into everything and like they're only one and they're just yeah. I think we're in for it.
Think of the day you can sit down and go, right, boys, listen to this. This is Dad playing Emotion Sickness or Freak or Slave. And they'll be like, fucking hell, Dad.
Yeah, is that really you? That's not you.
And they'll be playing along in your music room. Get one on drums, one on guitar.
That's right. You know, it's funny. My studio. A few times when I've brought them in here and I sat them at the piano and not probably not the drums so much yet because it's just a bit too loud for them.
Yeah.
But I was like, you guys have no idea just yet, just how cool, you know, particularly if they kind of take up, music.
Oh, it's gonna be amazing. You'll be
Yeah,
their
they take up.
producer. You'll be like, come on, son, let's record this.
Yeah. I mean, they'll probably end up being, I don't know, it could be tradies, they could be bloody anything. So who knows? But look, if they do like music, they'll certainly enjoy the studio. That's for sure.
Ben, thanks so much for your time. I know it's late. I know how short and limited your time is. We've talked about it quite a lot on today, but I just want you to know how much I appreciate today, and it's been a pleasure, truly. And I'm so grateful for you giving up your time and coming on.
No worries, man. I thanks for the persistence, and I appreciate it. It's been a really enjoyable in chatting with you.
So there it is. There's my interview with me and the amazing Ben Gillies. I've waited so long to talk to Ben. It was genuinely a dream come true. I don't mind admitting that I'm a Silverchair fanboy. They changed my life. If you look at photos of me back at my parents' house when I was 15, all I wore was Silverchair t-shirts. I remember when I was a kid and Freak Show came out, and this will show my age. I would go to Virgin Megastore, sit there, and before the album came out, usually 2 weeks prior, you could go, get some headphones, and choose an album to listen to basically before it came out, the promo release. And I would go after college or school, sit there, put the headphones on in the shop, and listen to Freak Show before it came out. Every single song, nearly every night after school or college, and I would just absolutely be besotted with the songs, so excited, and I couldn't believe it when I got to go and see them in Nottingham. They were just as good as I'd hoped. I later then got to see them in London, Manchester, I saw them at Reading Festival, and then obviously Silverchair broke up and absolutely broke my heart. But to sit down with Ben, go through this whole trip down nostalgia lane, it was a dream come true. You can build up a guest and feel really excited, and sometimes you're not sure if they're going to deliver or be just as much as you've anticipated because you've built it up so high. But Ben is one of the nicest people I've ever had on the podcast. We've kept in contact since, we're texting all the time, and I can tell you he's listened to the interview and he absolutely loves it. So Ben, if you're listening again, thank you so much for coming on. You really have made my dreams come true, and to celebrate episode 250 is just amazing with you, so thank you. And to all you guys at home, I really hope you've enjoyed today's interview as much as me. It's been a long time coming, and I wouldn't have picked anyone else to share this occasion with. If you've really enjoyed today's episode, all I ask is that you go on markandme.com and share it. Maybe you're on Twitter, and if you are and you see the podcast out there, just hit that retweet button. It's literally the click of 2 buttons. It will cost you nothing, and maybe some of your followers, like me, who grew up in the 90s and absolutely love Silverchair, might just jump on and listen to them. If you're on Facebook, why not hit the share button? Or if you're on Instagram, just like the update because it helps the algorithm, helps me boost up there. I'll never know how Instagram works, but if you like it, maybe it will show up on other people's feeds. Or if you're really generous, put it on your stories because then more and more people will see it. I want so many people to hear this interview because Ben doesn't do a lot of press and it's something that has meant so much to me and I'm so proud of. So let's get it out there and get everyone talking again about this incredible band. Also, I do have a Patreon account, and only last week I released the whole new series of specials called The Lost Tapes. These are a series of interviews that I'm releasing once every month for people to say thank you on Patreon who supported me. I will be releasing these special interviews that are only for Patreon. This is my way of saying thank you for supporting me. And last week I released an amazing interview with an incredible band called The Lottery Winners, and the only way that you're going to access that is to go via Patreon and sign up. And I'm doing that for only $3.99 a month for you guys out there, which is an absolute bargain. You genuinely can't buy a McDonald's meal for that, and I'm going to give you that every month. Not only that, some stickers, some badges, some exclusive prizes thanks to my good friends at Richer Sounds, and so much more. So if you can afford that, please jump on there, because it all goes right back into the podcast and allows me to go out there and record more interviews for you guys at home. But people don't understand, this podcast is completely independent, so much so it's just me. I go out there, I organise the interviews, I get the interviews recorded, produced, edited, mixed down, published for you guys out there. I do all the promotion myself. I am a one-man team. So if you've really enjoyed today's interview, please just go on markandme.com and sign up on Patreon. Again, I can't thank Ben enough for coming on the show. Please check out his solo work as well. It's on Spotify or iTunes or all those different places. It's great and you should support this guy. I'll be back in only a few days' time with a brand new episode. So until then, listen to Silverchair, look after yourself, take care. Thank you for supporting me for 250 episodes, and I'll speak to you all very soon.